This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We reached critical mass in this country. The Republican Party is in full retreat. President Trump is in full retreat. He's on his way to Scotland, as a matter of fact. He's getting out of the country. And the American people are on their own. Let me tell you what the situation is. I wrote a column this week, right after the demonstration at the Capitol last Wednesday, which titled, "When the Government Fears the People, There's Liberty." That's a direct quote from Thomas Jefferson, who I dedicated my book to. It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. Thomas Jefferson is my lodestar. Of any one of the founding fathers, and they were great men, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, the rest. Jefferson was the most learned. Jefferson was the most far-sighted, and Jefferson was more on point. He believed in individual liberty. He feared the government. He understood what it would become. And we see today exactly what it's become. As I write in my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, all three branches of government have become infested by cockroaches. I like to use that word because I think you can think of cockroaches scampering around. They're the only thing that will survive a nuclear blast if we get into an atomic war. And that's exactly what we have now running our government. We have it running in the deep state on both sides of the political fence, mostly through the intelligence agencies, the FBI, my alma mater, my once proud alma mater, the Justice Department, other agencies as well. You see what we have in terms of our legislature on Capitol Hill, and that explains why the people protested at the Capitol this week. And that's all it was a protest. They didn't harm anybody. Broke a few windows. I broke more windows in elementary school than they broke at the time that they conducted this demonstration. And then, of course, you have the federal judiciary, the most corrupt of all, and the most, frankly, guilty of all. And you can see what went on after the election with regard to the massive fraud. Even Trump's own judges and justices stabbed him in the back like Brutus. And then, of course, getting back to Congress, his vice president, Michael Pence, like Brutus in the Roman Senate. Pence of the American Senate stabbed the president in the back, assassinated him politically. And he was left hanging out there on his own. And what did he do? He now has jumped ship as well. He's fleeing the country. And this is what the situation is today. Now, we see who participated in this flight, who precipitated it. It was largely the media. Fox News, the most disgusting, dishonest cable network, because they're supposed to be on our side. You know, they milked us for years and years and years. As I write in my book, It Takes a Revolution, and my prior one, Whores, it was Larry Klayman and people like me who built up the market for Fox News when we took on the Clintons. We created a, quote, scandal industry, which now has become just that, a scandal industry. It's not for real. It's not in any way intended to clean up the mess in this country. Fox News benefited by that. But when the heat gets too hot in the kitchen, when people are blaming Fox News for actually one of the best days in American history, as Jefferson predicted, when the people rose up and took back their capital, went through the window, I mean, big deal, occupied the desk of Nancy Pelosi, the most disgusting, lying, you-know-what that's ever been House Speaker and sat there with a photograph, to me, that's a great day in American history. They didn't harm the head of anyone. But let's get back to how the people got there. It's because these federal judges, and we saw Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate this week throw the president under the bus, that slimy individual, Republican establishment hack representing the rest of them. We got there because the federal judges would not enforce the rule of law, much more the Constitution. And it's just one example among many. That case that was filed by the Attorney General of Texas was a good case. It made a lot of sense. A lot of people agree with me. Mark Levin, others agree with me. They wouldn't even listen to it. Because you see, everyone in terms of Washington, D.C. and the state capitals, they protect themselves like Fox News did. If Fox News had been around during the days of the French Revolution, when the heads of Louis XV and Marie Antoinette were put on the guillotines at Place de la Concorde in the middle of Paris to soon be lopped off, they would have been criticizing the peasants who waged the revolution. They would have said, oh no, we can't have violence. Well, you know, it was Thomas Jefferson who was an architect, not just of the American Revolution. He was an architect of the French Revolution. He was an ambassador to France. He never wanted to realign with Great Britain. He wanted to stay aligned with France. And the bottom line is, we would not have won our revolution without help from the French. We had no navy. It was at Yorktown that the French destroyed the British Armada. And that was the end of the war, effectively. Now, here's where we are today, is that everyone has been going in retreat. You've got cabinet secretaries resigning. You've got the media condemning what went on, American citizens who simply had had enough. You've got the congressmen and senators condemning what went on. And we now saw that what was going on with regard to their so-called challenge to the election was just a charade to take the monkey off their back so they could say, oh, we tried. Much like they said, oh, we tried to get justice for the Russian collusion witch hunts. People like Lindsey Graham, complete phonies, closet individuals who live two lives, not just sexually, but live two lives politically, with one a lie to the American people and the rest his own lies. And he's just one example. I'm not picking on him specifically. The others are the same. So the American people saw all of this. They saw that they had no legal recourse. And they rose up and they made a demonstration. And it's just the beginning. Because as Jefferson said, and he predicted, because we have judges on the federal bench who are unelected, because they represent the special interests, and that's a nice way of putting it, the people that grease getting their judgeships with money. Money talks and nobody walks. Campaign contributions, bribes, you name it. That's how federal judges get on the bench. The fact is that the American people were left out in the cold. And Jefferson therefore predicted that every 20 years or so, we would have to wage another bloody revolution. The blood of patriots and tyrants would have to be shed again. And he added, what's a few thousand dead to preserve the tree of liberty? Now, as I've said over and over again in the last few weeks, he didn't want to see violence. Neither does Larry Klayman. Neither do true patriots. We don't advocate that. But unless we can put an arrest, unless we can stop what's going on, and we're out on our own right now, only in the Father and Son are with us. And that's everything. That is everything. He was with Jesus, the Father. He was with Moses. He was with King David. You know, these people persevered. They lived during difficult times. And Jesus wasn't just a person. He was the Son of God. So we have to go back to our roots, and we have to know that even though the president's now jetting away to Scotland and is nowhere to be found, and he's thrown in the towel, he called this demonstration on Capitol Hill heinous yesterday. God knows who made him walk the plank. That was unacceptable. That was despicable to say that. We are now on our own, and we, the American people, must rise up. And that's why I wrote the book. It takes a revolution, forget the scandal industry. We must take our own justice system back with citizens' grand juries. As I've said many times, Justice Scalia in 1992, in a case United States versus Williams, said the grand jury belongs to the American people, not to the three branches of government. Last year, We commissioned a grand jury. Dr. Jerome Corsi testified as to how Special Counsel Robert Mueller and his staff tried to get him to lie under oath to implicate the president in Russian collusion crimes. He refused. Larry Klayman and Corsi pushed back. We filed lawsuits against Mueller, and Corsi was left alone. Of course, Roger Stone was indicted and convicted on 7 felony counts, did not even present one witness in his own defense. But Corsi stood up, and that's the lesson for the American people. We cannot be afraid. We will not be in retreat. We are going to go full forward. And with citizens' grand juries, we will hold the Comeys. We will hold the McCabe's. We will hold the Lovebirds, Strzok and Page. We will hold the Bruce Orrs. We will hold the Obamas. We will hold the Clintons. And finally, we will hold the master criminal, perhaps the biggest criminal ever to occupy the office of the presidency, soon to be on January 20th, Joe Biden, someone bought and paid for by the butchers of Beijing. And what did it remind me of last Wednesday? It reminded me of the students in communist China who rose up in 1991 at Tiananmen Square carrying a Statue of Liberty, a recreation of the Statue of Liberty. And these communist butchers mowed them down and murdered them. And that's the courage that they had. And ironically, it's that same communist China that created the bioweapon that's destroying this country and the rest of the world, known as COVID-19. And who owns the president of the United States through the billions of dollars that were funneled through his son, Hunter? These same communist Chinese butchers of Beijing. And that is why we need to rise up. The country's been taken over by a Manchurian candidate and a vile vice president who lies, who frankly wants to radicalize this country to the left. Now the American people must rise up. Now, I want you to listen to a very important guest that I'm going to have, Charles Butler, who is a black commentator, very wise person. He calls it as he sees it. It's time for action. It's no longer time for words. We will prevail with the grace of God. I'll be right back with Charles Butler.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with my friend, my colleague, a great American patriot, Charles Butler. We've had him on the show before. I want Charles' take on what's going on. But before we do that, remind people as to your background, Charles, so they can reach you. Because Charles tells it like it is. And I heard him quite by chance. I was supposed to be on his radio show a couple months ago, and we crossed paths. But I listened to his show. I was so impressed by what he said. He works humor into what he does. Humor is very important sometimes to make a point. And he's not afraid to tell it like it is. He doesn't want to be called an African American. He wants to be called an American. And that's what I heard him say, and he gave his views on various things. But Charles, give a little introduction as to who you are, and then give us your take on what went on last Wednesday. I believe it was the culmination of the American people being held out to dry. I believe it was the culmination of federal judges not being responsive to the American people, as Jefferson predicted, that they would have to rise up yet again. And the Congress, a bunch of cockroaches who scurry about the slimy halls of Congress but don't represent the American people but represent themselves. And, of course, the deep state in the executive branch. And now we have President Trump, who people were looking to lead us. And right now he's on a plane heading for Scotland. So it tells you a lot. I mean, kind of reminds me of Napoleon, who was banished to the Isle of Elbe. But at this point, Charles, give us your take on it. Tell people your background and how you see this thing as it played out.
Well, my name's Charles Butler. I'm a talk show host. I've been in talks radio since 2007 here in Chicago, and now we do a national show on RedStateTalkRadio.com. You can find us there at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. My background is I'm a country boy from Pontiac, Michigan, the son of a factory worker, a tradesman, and a stay-at-home mom. who instilled a great deal of patriotism, along with the reality of being a black man in America and the inequities of being black in America, but this being our country and how we had to serve it and give back to others. So I was a naval officer, got my commission through NROTC, was in aviation, got out of service with honorable discharge, got into the computer business, and from there owned a couple of computer companies, and now I'm in the financial service arena. Been there since '95, and I've been involved in politics, in Republican politics. In '92, I passed out literature on University of Michigan campus for Dick Nixon. And people say, well, you're Uncle Tom. And I go, well, you wouldn't call Jim Brown an Uncle Tom, not to his face. And you wouldn't call James Brown an Uncle Tom, not to his face. You might call Sammy Davis Jr. an Uncle Tom, and you did because he's a little guy. And you think you could beat him up. But the other two would certainly be in your behind. Anyway, let's go, Larry. Let's talk about what happened on the Hill yesterday.
Let her rip, Charles. I gave my take on it. I mean, I believe that this was a legitimate uprising by the American people. The fact that a few windows were broken, no big deal. I broke more windows in elementary school. They gave me a couple days off for doing that, and for good behavior, so to speak. And the sight of someone sitting at the desk of Nancy Pelosi, which is our desk, that's our Capitol, I find it to be one of the greatest pictures in American history. I'm going to hang it on my wall, okay, because of what's going on right now. So give me your take on it, because I think people are interested. You have a really interesting perspective. You're extremely articulate, and you mix a little humor into it, too. So maybe we can make people feel a little better at the same time.
Well, I don't know how people will feel, because, I'm not into feelings. But, my observation is that the people who breach the Capitol building walk like Antifa, talk like Antifa, dress like Antifa. So if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, acts like a duck, then what? Must be a duck, right? I'm looking at video from social media that these people posted. And they were so stupid that they posted one picture that I have. It says a guy taking a selfie. It says PhillyAntifa.org. That's how dumb they are. I mean, these people were clearly from Antifa. And this is a playbook out of J. Edgar Hoover's playbook. It's been done before. J. Edgar Hoover infiltrated the Black Panther Party. Everybody acknowledges 30 years after the fact that the FBI infiltrators always perpetrated violence against the police.
Charles, we're coming to the end of the segment. We'll be right back with your thoughts. I'm going to be devil's advocate to what you're saying right now, but be right back, my good friend. Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
We're back with Charles Butler. I want to just interject one thing, Charles, on this. I mean, clearly, there were some people that were Antifa. This is my opinion. I believe that most of the people were not Antifa. Frankly, I think Antifa is overblown. We're not just talking about Antifa. We're talking about a lot of radical leftists, atheists, radical homosexuals, lesbians, transgenders, radicals of the Jewish left, radical blacks, radicals from every walk of life, radical Muslims. These people rose up. Most of them were not, in my opinion. And it's being delegitimized by people who don't have the courage to stand up to the tyranny of the people that run our government by saying, oh, it was just Antifa. And right now we've got a president of the United States who was supposedly our fearless leader. He wasn't my fearless leader because I don't think there is a political messiah. Okay, but I supported him, and he did many good things in the 4 years. But now he's on a jet plane, Trump's plane, going to Scotland because he's getting the hell out of the country. Okay, so the American people are on their own right now, whether it was Antifa or not. We have the same situation. the government has broken away from the people. And as in 1776, we have a choice. We can either go along and be enslaved, and you know what that's about, or we can alter or abolish our government and form a new government by and for the people, and in the process, bring about justice through citizens' grand juries and things like that.
From my understanding, from people who were there, they watched and recorded 3 busloads of Antifa people debus and head up to the Capitol. They didn't stay on the fringes. They didn't stay on the lawn. They headed to the Capitol building, is my understanding.
Well, let's take Antifa out of it. Say there's no Antifa. Would it have been wrong for American citizens to break a few windows and take control of the Capitol and to tell the government you're in control, not you?
No question. They could have gone into the Capitol peacefully, and there are conflicting reports. But right now we know that there are pictures, and you've seen them and I've seen them, of Capitol Police actually opening the fence, ushering people into the rotunda and into the Capitol building. So the people who were breaking windows, you could hear the people behind them saying they're Antifa, stop them, and they were tackling these people and applauding stopping these people from breaking windows and the anarchist move. You've never seen at any Trump rally across the nation, you've never seen the kind of behavior that you saw at the Capitol. That's my point. They're using this event to try to invalidate Trump's presidency. That's not going to happen. The American people are awake. The American people know today that they don't have to bow down to China, that globalization is reversible, that tariffs protect American jobs. The American people have been so brainwashed, Larry, that they actually, when you say that 137%, that Wayne County had 139% voter participation, most Americans, I would say 80% of Americans, can't figure out what that really means. We had 139% of voter participation in Wayne State, in Wayne County, in Detroit. Most people have no idea how absurd that is, that it's damn near impossible. That it is impossible. Well, it's possible, but it's possible only because you have more people voting than that are eligible to vote. But that never translates.
Let me say this. I understand what you're saying, okay? But here's the essence of the problem, okay? The American people feel like they don't have representatives that represent their interests, okay?
They don't.
They have a judiciary, even Trump's own judges threw him under the bus, including Supreme Court justices that he bragged about. We've got the deep state and executive branch that attempted to destroy Trump. And you've got these, excuse the French, FAGOTS, and I don't mean that in a sexual sense, in Congress, who were doing a dog and pony show that never had any interest, really, in getting to the bottom of the massive fraud that elected the biggest criminal ever to be elected as president of the United States, Joe Biden, someone bought and paid for by the butchers of Beijing, who slaughtered 10,000 of their own citizens in 1991 when they were simply marching through Beijing with a Statue of Liberty that they had recreated. This is the guy's going to be our president now. Okay, so if it came down to non-Antifa people breaking a few windows, given the alternative of going up there with firearms and turning on the United States, frankly, as Jefferson predicted was going to happen, I don't see that was a terrible thing. It wasn't certainly heinous, as the president said yesterday, when someone convinced him to walk the plank. And we've got to call a spade here. The president now has abandoned the American people as well. And that's where we are. We're on our own. We're only here under divine providence of God and his son right now, which is all we really need. Okay, that's all we need. And that's all our founding fathers need. Our founding fathers didn't need a Donald Trump at the time. So Trump's gone. We're on our own right now. He's headed to Scotland. So that's where I am, Charles, on that. Your thoughts?
Well, I tend to agree we are on our own. But the American people are better off today having had a Donald Trump, having listened to Donald Trump, having had a person in the White House who fought for the American people. And that's what these people in Washington can't wrap their mind around, the Mitch McConnells, the Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumers. This is not going to be the nice old Republicans trying to out-Democrat Democrats. And that's always been their problem, whether it's Mitch McConnell or whether it's Paul Ryan, John McCain. They're always trying to out-Democrat. We're going to be nice, and we're going to be the nicest people. Donald Trump got elected because of his plain talking and his brashness. They totally neglected in this election cycle has been the fact that the president never said while he was campaigning that I delivered on my promises. I built a wall. I stopped the invasion. I stopped open borders. He never really touched on those things when he was out campaigning. His campaign manager was horrible. Horrible.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I give the president credit for doing good things in 4 years, too. I'm just saying right now.
But black people came out in droves for Trump. I'm telling you that blacks and Latinos came out in droves for Donald Trump. I have met maybe 3 black people who said they voted for Biden, while 40 said they voted for Trump. That's the sentiment. I'm talking to Latinos who said, hey, who would vote for Joe Biden? He hasn't done anything. I mean, I don't see any enthusiasm for Joe Biden at all. And I'm talking about people who are total strangers to me who are talking about this. And they're relating to me stories and situations that they've had where the same thing has happened. Black and brown people and white people are saying, I didn't vote for Joe Biden. So how does he win? Larry, one thing that's not talked about in this whole after-election discussion is the Baker-Carter report on voter fraud in elections and voting. It's a 75-page document. The executive summary is brief. It's about 4 or 5 pages, beautifully done. And it talks about these things that happened in the 2016 election and the election of 2020. And we've ignored them, just like we ignored the 9/11 Commission. The 9/11 Commission was very clear. The breakdown in immigration enforcement led us to be attacked and allowed our attackers to blow up bombs in our community. So fast forward 2005 to 2020, and we still didn't enforce. Trump's people should have been all over this 4 years ago about this mail-in ballot stuff. It's very there in black and white, but they're lazy, they're pompous, they're stupid, and I don't know who these people are, man, but they are.
Yeah, they sold out the American people, Charles. They sold us out. They did nothing. Yeah, they sat around. They knew what was going on from the inside. And that's where we are today. And, my point is here, put all that aside. What do we have to do going forward? We need to take the country back ourselves, okay? The Republican Party is dead. I repeat that, dead. It's over. It's finished. Stick a fork into it. You've got cabinet secretaries jumping ship like rats. And you've got the people that appear on Fox News like rats. And the hosts have been told by the CEO, leftist Lachlan Murdoch, that basically they had to condemn what went on last Wednesday. And in fact, this is exactly what our founding fathers did, but in a much more measured way. They took up arms. These people didn't take up arms. A few broken windows? Are you kidding me? This is a charade. And so now at least the American people can see what we're dealing with. And somehow they worked the president into walking the plank, declaring that this was a heinous act. And you know what? That's a disgrace. He just canceled himself out of being the leader of the conservative movement forever, as far as I'm concerned. And we, the American people, need to rise up. He did good things for 4 years. Let's thank him for that. Okay? He blew it, but he did good things for 4 years. He was defrauded. The American people were defrauded. But what do we do about it now?
I don't know what we do about it, Larry, but I can honestly say that I'm encouraged that people are awake. I'm encouraged that people have a different mindset about who they are, about who the country is, where the country's going. I'm encouraged by that, and that was a direct result of Donald Trump being president. That's all I can say.
In just a few weeks, we're going to be seen the addition of Puerto Rico and District of Columbia.
No, that has to. You know, Larry. That has to have a constitution. I don't think anything's going to happen with that. They just.
No, but I'm saying it's. I agree with you, but it's a litmus test to where we're going. Okay, we are now, like the people of Israel living under the bondage of Pharaoh. Now, Pharaoh right now happens to have been bought and paid for by communist China, billions of dollars laundered through his son Hunter. Okay, this is the same communist China that released a bioweapon, COVID-19, destroying this country and the rest of the world. This is the guy who is our president. And then Kamala Harris, and we talked about this, probably egged him on to say, well, if this had been Black Lives Matter at the Capitol, they would have been beaten up and killed. Okay.
Well,
stoking another race war.
Let me rephrase that. And let's be clear about this. Black Lives Matter is white people telling America about black folks' grievances. That's what Black Lives Matter, the movement is. They use the name Black Lives Matter like black people are involved. Black people aren't involved. This is about white people and their movement. White liberals.
I agree with you. They're being used.
And the reality is, so Black Lives Matter is totally different from black people, like the people in the neighborhoods who are rioting. I would say this: if those people were black, I'm not talking about Black Lives, I'm talking about black people, not Black Lives Matter. It's not a black group. That they would have been shot if they had done. If they had rioted, and I use this example after the inauguration in 2017, if black people had been in Washington knocking out office windows, setting buildings on fire, police cars on fire, throwing rocks and bricks at the police, attacking the police with baseball bats, they would have been shot.
Well, wait a second, but that's not what happened. Okay, this was not a riot.
That's not what happened. But yeah, exactly. That's not what happened. Black Lives Matter is white people. Black Lives Matter is white people.
White people
keep forgetting
the white leftists primarily, and I'm Jewish, Christian, I can say this, primarily the Marxian Jewish left has manipulated black people to be their opponents.
No, that's not. No, you forget. They're just using the name, Larry. They're not black people involved, dude. Black people are not involved in Black Lives Matter. You only have more. You have these pro athletes talking about Black Lives Matter. There are no black people in Black Lives Matter.
We got 30 seconds. I want you to hang on, and I'm going to give a little introduction in the verdict section. Hang on, Charles, because I want to pursue this because it's important, and you see it from the inside. We'll be right back with Charles Butler. We have another 5 minutes for the verdict section. I hope he can hang in there because it's really good to get his perspective as well as mine. And in the meantime, go out and buy my book, It Takes a Revolution, because I'm giving you a solution on how to wage a revolution peacefully and legally. And it wasn't violent last Wednesday either, believe me. We'll be right back.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Fellow patriots, fellow Americans, people now who are living under the likelihood in just 12 days of slavery, okay? It reminds me of Moses, let my people go. I don't want this country to be wandering around for 40 years looking for the promised land, because by that time there will be no promised land left unless we rise up now with the grace of God and his son. And that's the bottom line. And I agree with Charles in what he's been saying, that Black Lives Matter was just simply a euphemism. It was a slogan, okay? Is it behind Black Lives Matter? This is my take, Charles. You may not agree with it. Is that the face of Black Lives Matter, these unintelligent people, frankly, who were black or are black, okay, were being used by whites, by Marxian whites, to attempt to destroy this country. But I do not believe, my own take, that they would have been beaten up and killed for breaking a few windows and sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. I don't believe that, okay? And that's my take. And I want people also, before I let you take it from there, to go out, and I want them to read my book, and I want them to read the Declaration of Independence. It Takes a Revolution. You can get it at Amazon.com, because we just can't sit back and wait for things to work out. They're not going to work out. We're on the verge of a socialist, communist takeover of this country by every radical group. And once they take control and divide everything up, and there'll be nothing left, even for themselves, they'll start fighting with each other. I mean, as one example, what do Muslims have in common with gays, lesbians, and transgenders? The Muslims want to kill them, or at least subject them to high taxes, if you really believe in the Quran. So anyway, give me your thoughts. I mean, obviously, this is a good give and take, because people need to think it through. Time is now short. We need to think through where we're going, and that's what I give people a roadmap to do that. And It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry.
Well, I read your book. It's a great book. It's a great read, and it's true. What I'm trying to impart to you and to others, Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with Black people. If you read their agenda, it has nothing to do with Black people. It's about gays, transgenders. It's led by 3 Black women who are funded by socialists and Marxists. 2 are lesbian, one's a transgender person. Who knows? Who cares who these people are? The question becomes, how did they get funded? Some of my friends tell me that Antifa and Black Lives Matter are a CIA deal. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's just like anything else. Where there's smoke, there's fire. We used to hear that when I was in college. We used to hear that the FBI had infiltrated the Black Panther Party, and we were speculative. We had FBI on campus taking pictures of Black students. My picture was taken numerous times. We find out 30 years later that, the FBI had infiltrated the Black Panther Party, and the antagonists and the people who fired shots at the police were FBI infiltrators or hires or contractors or whatever you want to call them. They weren't just Black Panthers. So
Charles, I agree with you that Black people are not Black Lives Matter. I agree with you. My most courageous friends and colleagues, they're nearly all Black conservatives. They're the only ones that would stick their neck out. The whites ran for the exits. Now you can see them running for the exits, jumping ship like rats. That's a reality. Okay, my Black friends like you, like Alan Keyes.
When you're a Black Republican, there's something that stands out for you that unlike other people who claim they're in politics. The only way that we can remain credible as Black Americans and Republicans or conservatives is history and the facts. Now, most people will say to you, to hell with the facts, because they don't have any. Liberals, Democrats with the Ku Klux Klan, Democrats have disenfranchised Blacks in the North and in the South. Chicago is no panacea for Black folks. Got 30 seconds.
Well, we've got about 30 seconds left, and let's sum it up, is that the American people now are out there in the sea by themselves with only God and His Son to save us. We need to act now. That's why I know I'm pushing my book. I want people to read it. I'm not going to make money off of it. It Takes the Revolution. Forget the Scandal Industry. Get it at Amazon.com or at freedomwatchusa.org with a contribution of 50 or more. I'll send it to you. Now is the time to act. The president, for 12 days, is on his way to Scotland. He's being threatened with impeachment, the 25th Amendment. He's done. Okay, now it's up to us and God. Thank you, Charles, for coming on. We'll have you back again. God bless you. God save America.
I enroll because we can't afford not to be covered.
Whatever your reason for needing health insurance, Nevada HealthLink is here for you. Enroll November 1st through January 15th at nevadahealthlink.com.